Alright, good evening everyone. Welcome back to the OneClass channel. My name is Osehi and I am one of your senior economics tutors. And a little bit of background about myself is I have a bachelor's degree in economics and currently working at one of the big 5 banks in Canada. So today basically what we're going to go over is a few questions that some of you might have submitted. Our junior tutors answered them. I'm just gonna walk you through their thought process and how they got through those answers. So just remember, if you have any questions, if you need any help with some of your homework, economics related, please look at the link in the bio and in the description below, and we should be able to help you. So with that being said, let's get started. All right, this is question 1. Consider a $100 increase in GDP per capita. In 2012, Niger had a GDP per capita of approximately $800, and the United States had a GDP per capita of $50,700. Calculate the corresponding growth rates for these two countries. So let's see what our tutor did here. Niger's growth rate per capita equals a change in GDP per capita over GDP per capita in 2012 multiplied by 100. And that was just 100 over 800. And you multiply that by 100 to give you the percentage. And I'm going to trust the calculation is correct. And it's 12.5%. So Niger's growth rate per capita for growth rate of GDP per capita is 12.5%. And next we'll look at the US. The change GDP per capita is 100. Divide that by their GDP per capita, which is 50,000. That's a comma, by the way, 700. You multiply that by 100, I mean. This is being multiplied by 100 also. You multiply that by 100 to give you the percentage amount. And it's equal to 0.197%, which you could also call 0.2% if you're rounding up. And that's correct. So again, just to go over that, the growth rate of GDP per capita equals the change in GDP per capita divided by GDP per capita, in this case in 2012, and you multiply that by 100 to get your percentage amount. So this is correct. So this is question 2 for us. And the question says, consider the cost function C of x equals 9500 plus 4000x for producing X widescreen TVs. Find the change in cost when production changes from 200 to 300 TVs. So first thing we're going to do is write down our equation. And so we're trying to find the change in cost when production changes from 200 to 300. So basically what we're going to do is sub in 200 for one of them, like our tutor did. And that gives you 809,500. And you do the same thing except at 300. Which gives you 1,209,500. And to find the change in cost, you do C of 300 minus C of 200. And that gives you 400,000. And that's what our tutor did. So this is correct. So the change in cost of production from 200 TVs to 300 is an additional $400,000. So this is correct. So this is question 3. It's a 3-part question. What are some of the economic costs of hosting the Olympic Games? Question 2 says, what are some of the economic benefits of hosting the Olympic Games? And how does tourism fit into this discussion? So first, economic costs are equal to explicit plus implicit costs. So again, economic costs are equal to explicit plus implicit costs. And our tutor said here the cost of economics includes accounting costs, which are explicit, and opportunity cost, which is our implicit cost. An accounting cost is the total monetary cost of hosting the games. The opportunity cost would include opportunity costs that the same amount of money could have been invested elsewhere. For example, invested in education, health, or infrastructure development, which could have increased production capacity and outside the country. Economic costs would therefore include the benefits foregone as a result of not investing in health, education, or infrastructure development, and the overall loss of the revenue associated with it. So that's a complete answer. Second question says, what are some of the economic benefits of hosting the Olympic Games? And I guess our tutor answered the second and third question together, and how does tourism fit into the discussion? So economic benefits is obviously an increase in tourism, and that has a play in increasing the total GDP of the economy, because you have people from other nations coming in and spending in the host country. Second, they said better trade relations and international connectivity. That's, again, you're hosting a bunch of different countries. It puts your country on the map, and it basically gives you a better standing with the countries that you are hosting with, provided that you do a good job. And multiplier effect of spending on hosting the game, the boom in the hospitality industry and other services. For example, hosting the Olympic Games could promote tourism in a major way. This creates a positive multiplier as more and more people visit the country and spread word of mouth about tourism in the country. A boost in tourism will also spur a growth in the hospital industry. So overall, it's a total complete answer, and it's correct. Question number 4. Suppose the number of people who retire is greater than the number of people who enter the workforce and find jobs. All else being the same, labor force participation rates will blank and the unemployment rate will blank. So, first things first, let's define labor force participation rate. So, say labor force is equal to the total employed and unemployed. And our question is asking if number of people who retire, which is basically you're leaving the labor force, is greater than the number of people who enter the labor force and find jobs. So they not only enter the labor force, but they're also employed. All else being the same, the labor force participation rate should decrease because the people leaving are greater than the people entering, and the unemployment rate should also decrease, I believe. See what our tutor said? No, the unemployment rate should increase because there's more people in the labor force and the number of unemployed people didn't change. So the unemployment rate should actually increase. And our tutor said the labor force participation rate is calculated as the ratio of civilian labor force to civilian non-institutional population, and the unemployment rate is the ratio of the unemployed divided by the civilian labor force. When the number of people who retire exceeds the number of people entering the workforce, the labor force decreases. And the decline in the labor force implies that less people are entering the workforce and less labor force participation rate. When the civilian labor force falls, as long as the number of unemployed people remain the same, the unemployment rate is gonna increase. So the answer here is decrease, increase, and that's option A. So that's a great explanation. And let's look at this again. This is question number 5. could type in this. Interesting. Question number 5. What type of unemployment is each of the following, and explain? So basically what we'll do first is just give a brief definition of all the unemployments, the types of unemployments. There's cyclical unemployment, which is basically unemployment related to trends in the industry. Then we have structural unemployment. Excuse me. And this is due to unemployment due to some sort of reorganization in the industry. For example, technological changes. Then we have frictional unemployment. That's not how you spell frictional. So we have frictional unemployment, which is unemployment. This is actually natural unemployment. So these are the people who are looking for jobs or haven't found one yet, or people who are in the process of switching from one job to another. And finally, we have seasonal unemployment, which is unemployment due to not being in season. For example, if there was a store that just sold only Christmas trees, no one's buying a Christmas tree in March. No one's buying a Christmas tree in April. You're probably not getting your Christmas trees until late October, November, depending on how excited you are about Christmas. So the people in the Christmas tree selling industry might be unemployed for every other season except for the Christmas season. We'll say example, company that sells Christmas trees or Christmas decorations. So with that being said, let's look at some of the questions here. Sally gets laid off from her job due to a decline in sales. See what our tutor said. A decline in sales may be due to a change in the business cycle. As a result, may have been canceled. This type of unemployment may be referred to as cyclical unemployment. And that says unemployment related to trends in the industry. And again, it's also, if you're not making sales in the sales industry, you're likely to lose your job because the trend is obviously moving in an upward direction and you need to make sales. So this would be cyclical unemployment. B, Sally gets laid off due to computers taking over her tasks at work. Our tutor here said this situation is similar to frictional unemployment, where workers leave the industry and remain unemployed for a shorter period of time until they find new jobs in the industry with better growth prospects. So I actually would disagree with that and say this is structural unemployment. And let's just see if we can move this so we could see it. So structural unemployment is employment due to some sort of reorganization in the industry. For example, this just says a technological change and computers being able to do your work for you is the company reorganizing, and because technology is on the rise, they no longer need you for that position. So I would say B is structural unemployment due to the fact that it's a technological change and she's only unemployed because of the technological advancement of computers being able to do her work for her. Sally gets temporarily laid off due to a seasonal decline in sales at her place of employment. And this sort of already tells us the answer by saying the seasonal decline. Seasonal layoffs is called seasonal unemployment. In this case, the person will be employed again when the peak period of the season is back. Peak period or the season is back. And we agree with that. Bob gets laid off due to outsourcing of his job. This situation in which the worker is replaced by other outsourcing workers on the basis of either cost consideration or future prospects is structurally unemployed. So I think this can be structural unemployment, and it could also be seen as frictional unemployment. So he's also been laid off and he's not looking for a new job, and it's just natural unemployment. So I'll say this could be structural or frictional. So the only one we don't agree with is B. We believe B is structural unemployment due to the technological advancement causing Sally to lose her job. And we'll say next, we have question number 6. Excuse me. Pick 2 goods you think floors should be placed on, and 2 goods you think ceilings should be placed on. Identify those 4 goods and why you chose them. What problems might occur in the marketplace based on your choices. So, first of all, price floor. And we'll just copy this definition again. Price floor is the minimum price for goods and services sold by the seller, and price ceiling is the exact opposite, is the maximum price for goods and services charged by the seller. That being said, an example of price floor is government regulation of price floor on agriculture products just to protect the interest of farmers. So there's people working on farms growing their own vegetables, etc., and when they want to sell it, just so that they are able to compete or make a living off of it, the government imposes a price floor, which is the minimum that the goods could be bought for. Another example is wages of labor, and aka minimum wage set by the government to pay the Minimum wages set by the government to pay to labor to protect their welfare. And then price ceiling, like we said, is the maximum price for goods and services charged by the seller. And our examples here are regulation of maximum fees of certain medical tests and medical treatment fees, or regulation of the request of maximum rent in certain posh areas. So you could put a price ceiling on rent and price ceiling on medical technology, medical tests, and medical treatments. And some of the problems that this might create in the market. So let's look at the price floor on the farmers. Because the consumers, depending on what that price floor is, they might try to purchase their farm-related goods elsewhere, at a supermarket perhaps, and it takes away from it could decrease the surplus for the producers, which are the farmers. Look at wages of labor. If the minimum wage is a little too high, employers might fire some people if the wages need to go up higher, or they might only be able to hire a certain amount of people than if the wages were lower. And from the price ceiling perspective, if we look at the rent, it just makes it that cost of living is affordable for everyone, and the owners, the landlords, the owners of the buildings the problem that it might create for them is just a loss of surplus, and that's about it. So say correct, great explanation. On question 7 now. The firm is a price taker. Total cost equals 15Q squared plus 8Q plus 45. Social marginal cost equals 30Q plus 8Q. A, find the firm's fixed cost and variable cost, average total cost, average variable cost in the short run. B, find the firm's short run supply curve function. C, if P equals 15 is given, what is the optimal output level for the firm to maximize its profits? D, does the firm have a shutdown price? So let's see what our tutor did for A. So the variable costs are just the cost of the Q in them. So VC, variable cost, is equals 15Q. And why they're variable is because it depends on the number of quantity that is sold or quantity purchased. And because it depends on what Q is, that's why it's a variable cost. The fixed cost here is just simply 45. And that means even if quantity were to be 0, the cost would still be 45. Average total cost, ATC, is equal to 15Q plus 8 plus 45 over Q. Let's see if our tutor agrees with that. Average total cost, 15Q plus 8 plus 45 over Q. And that's just dividing the total cost function by Q. And the average variable cost, again, is just dividing the variable cost by Q. and that's 15Q plus 8. That's AVC, average variable cost. So that answers the first question. And does our tutor agree with that? Yes. AVC equals 15Q plus 8. And that's done by dividing everything by Q. So that's part A. Just gonna erase this. Still on question 7. We're just looking at B now. Find the firm short run supply curve function. Short run supply curve function is the marginal cost function, which is 30Q plus 8. So in this, when the firm is a price taker, S equals MC. Therefore, S equals 30Q plus 8. If P is equals 15 is given, what is the optimal output level for this firm to maximize its profit? And that just tells us that optimal profit is maximized when marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost, like our tutor states here. So we have the total revenue function, which is P multiplied by Q, which is also equals to 15Q. And therefore, marginal revenue is equal to 15. And if we equate marginal revenue equal to marginal cost, we have 15 equals 30Q plus 8. And if we solve for Q, Q equals 7/30. Let's see what was said here. 7/30, aka 0.23. And does this firm have a shutdown price? The answer is no, because, for example, if price equals 15 is higher than the average variable costs, in this example it would be 11.5, and you just sub the quantity into the average variable cost. It's not, the firm doesn't have a shutdown price because the price is greater than the average variable cost. So that answers that. I would say correct. Great explanation. And again, I'm just saying the price at 15, they're charging more than the average cost of production, so they could operate in the short run. And therefore, they don't have a shutdown price. So solution is correct. I believe this is question number 8. State whether the following is true, false, or uncertain. Explain your answer. The first question says, while the magnitude of the income effect of a price change is unobservable, the sign can be determined on the basis of observable factors. Our tutor said this is true. The magnitude of the income effect of a price change needs to be calculated and cannot just be predicted by observing. However, a sign can be predicted by observing the characteristic of the good. If it is a normal good, the income effect of a price change is always negative. If the good is inferior or worse, it will be positive. So that is correct. So the good is normal. The income effect will be negative. And if the good is inferior, the income effect would be positive. And the second question is, with only two goods, they must be gross substitutes. And this is false. Two goods could be substitutes, complements, or unrelated goods, not necessarily only gross substitutes. And that's pretty obvious. If we had two goods, let's say we had a pencil, we had a water bottle. These two goods are completely unrelated. They're not substitutes and they're not complements. A pencil does not complement a water bottle in any ways. And a pencil also is not a substitute for a water bottle. You can drink out of a water bottle. You can't drink out of a pencil. But these goods are completely unrelated. So this statement right here, with only two goods, they must be gross substitutes. That is definitely false because they could be anything. Okay. This is question number 9. A firm faces the demand function P equals A. Its cost function is total cost equals C plus DQ plus EQ squared plus F Q cubed. Explain the type of firm described above. P equals A. Since the demand function is constant and it's a horizontal line, it is therefore a perfectly competitive company. So A perfect competition. And again, we could tell this because the demand curve is a straight line. Explain the time frame within the firm is operating. So 2 says the firm will operate till it's P equal AC. As long as P equals AC, the firm operates, but if P is less than AC, the firm will stop operating. So firm operates when price equals average cost and stops operating as soon as price falls below average cost. And find the output at which the firm will maximize its profits. And like we said in a question not too long ago, excuse me, as we said in a question not too long ago, maximizing profits is when marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Total revenue function in this case would just be P multiplied by Q. In this case, it's A multiplied by Q because P equals A. And the marginal cost would just be the derivative of the cost function. So C goes away. It becomes Q plus, I'm sorry, no it doesn't. It becomes D plus 2EQ plus 3FQ squared. And the firm will maximize its profits when AQ equals D plus 2EQ plus 3FQ squared. And we need to find the output in which this happens. It's broken down in here, becomes A Tutor breaks this down to A minus D equals Q multiplied by 3FQ minus 2E. Do I agree with that? I don't think so. Why would I not agree with that? So let's bring all the Q's to one side. So we have it's a little confusing. We'll say 3FQ squared plus 2EQ minus AQ equals minus D. And then divide everything by a negative. D equals minus 3FQ squared plus 2 Oh no, it's not a plus. Everything's being divided by a negative. So this is going to be negative 2EQ plus AQ. And we could just erase this over here. And we're going to continue at the top over here. Now we need to just factor out Q. So that would be D equals Q brackets 3F Q minus 2E, still a negative here, so negative there, so negative 3FQ minus 2E plus A, and Q would equals D over minus 3FQ minus 2E plus A. And this would be our profit maximizing output. This equation, this quantity right here. And don't agree with this here, so we'll say it's wrong. And with that being said, we're on to our final question, which is question 10. What are the different types of inflation? In particular, there are only two types of inflation. So this is basically a definition-based question. There's demand pull inflation, which occurs when aggregate demand increases at a faster rate than aggregate supply. Typically, the economy grows faster than the long-term growth trend. If demand exceeds supply, firms are forced to increase prices. So that would be inflation, which is increase in prices due to excess demand. The next definition we have here is the cost push inflation. This occurs when there is an increase in the cost of production for firms. For example, raw material price, high taxes, etc. This leads to reduce the production of goods, and therefore short-term aggregate supply shifts to the left. And again, if cost of production is increasing, for these sellers to make a profit, prices need to go up as well. And third, we have the wage push inflation. Rising wage trends to increase inflation. Rising wages increase the cost of production of firms, and so these are passed on to customers in the form of higher prices. When wage rises, the consumer's disposable income rises, given a rise in aggregate demand. So there are two types of inflation, demand pull and cost push. But wage push inflation is just another form of cost push inflation, because wages are, for firms, a cost of production, and once wages increase, the firms make their profit again due to cost of production increasing. The firms make their profits again by increasing the prices. So we'll say this is correct. Great explanation. I believe that's it. So thank you for taking the time to go over some of these questions with me. I urge you to remember that if you have any economics related questions or any homework question economics related, high school level, university level, it doesn't matter. Please submit them, and our tutors will give you an answer, and our senior tutors will be able to come on a live stream and just walk you through how those answers were achieved. Thanks again for listening, and have a wonderful rest of your evening.